Imagine a world without instant messages, without video calls, without even a simple email. This was the world of the early 19th century, a time when information traveled only as fast as the fastest horse or the quickest ship. A letter from London to New York could take weeks, even months, to arrive, making the world feel vast and disconnected. But then, something extraordinary happened. A technology emerged that would shrink the globe, connect continents, and change the very fabric of society. It was a web of wires and clicks, a system that transmitted thought at the speed of light. This was the telegraph, the true internet of the Victorian era. Before the telegraph, communication was a physical process. You had to physically transport a piece of paper, a message, from one point to another. This reliance on transportation meant that news, business dealings, and personal messages were always lagging behind reality. A general could be fighting a battle for a war that had already ended weeks ago. A merchant could make a deal based on prices that were hopelessly out of date. It was a world of delay and uncertainty. But the human desire for speed and connection is a powerful force. Inventors and dreamers across the globe were experimenting with a mysterious new force, electricity. They wondered if this invisible power could be harnessed to send information over long distances instantly. The idea seemed like something out of a fantasy novel. The breakthrough came in the 1830s and 1840s. In America, Samuel Morse, along with his brilliant assistant Alfred Vail, developed a system that was both simple and revolutionary. It used a single wire to transmit electrical pulses. A short pulse was a dot, and a long pulse was a dash. By combining these dots and dashes, they created a code that could represent every letter of the alphabet and every number. This, of course, was the legendary Morse code. The first official telegraph message was sent on May 24, 1844, between Washington, D.C. and Baltimore. Morse tapped out a quote from the Bible, "What hath God wrought?" The message arrived in Baltimore almost instantaneously. For those who witnessed it, it was pure magic. The 40-mile distance had been conquered not in hours, but in seconds. The age of instant communication had begun. Initially, people were skeptical. They saw the telegraph as a novelty, a clever toy. But a few forward-thinking individuals in business and journalism immediately grasped its immense potential. They saw a future where markets could be synchronized and news could be reported as it happened. The telegraph network began to spread like a digital vine, first connecting major cities on the east coast of the United States. Soon, networks were being built across Europe as well. This expansion was a massive undertaking. It required stringing thousands of miles of copper wire across difficult terrain, over mountains, across rivers, and through dense forests. Armies of workers, linemen, and engineers were deployed to build this new infrastructure. They were the pioneers of a connected world, laying the physical foundation for a global network. The telegraph office quickly became a central hub in every town and city. It was a place of buzzing activity, filled with the constant rhythmic clicking of the telegraph sounders. Inside, highly skilled operators, both men and women, would listen to the incoming clicks and transcribe them into written messages. These operators were the human processors of their day, capable of sending and receiving messages at incredible speeds. They developed their own unique lingo and culture, a brotherhood and sisterhood of the wire. The impact on journalism was immediate and profound. Before the telegraph, newspapers relied on slow mail or special couriers to get news from distant places. By the time a story was printed, it was often old news. The telegraph changed all that. Reporters could now send dispatches from the front lines of a conflict or from a political convention and have them appear in the next day's paper. This created a demand for up-to-the-minute news, feeding a cycle of information that we are very familiar with today. The Associated Press, one of the world's first news agencies, was formed in 1846 specifically to pool resources and share the cost of telegraphing news. This collaborative approach allowed even smaller newspapers to provide their readers with timely, national and international coverage. It democratized the flow of information. The world of business was also completely transformed. The telegraph synchronized markets in a way that was previously unimaginable. Stock prices, commodity values, and financial information could be transmitted across the country in minutes. This leveled the playing field, as a merchant in San Francisco could now have the same information as a broker on Wall Street. It made markets more efficient, but also more volatile. as bad news could now trigger a panic-selling spree across the nation in a matter of hours. The telegraph enabled the rise of large national corporations. A company could have its headquarters in New York and manage factories and sales offices across the country. Managers could send instructions, receive reports, and coordinate complex operations over the wire. This was the birth of modern corporate management, all made possible by this new network. But perhaps the most ambitious dream was to connect the continents. The idea of laying a cable across the vast and treacherous Atlantic Ocean seemed impossible to many. The ocean floor was a mysterious, uncharted territory, and the sheer weight and length of the required cable were staggering. Early attempts in the 1850s ended in failure, with cables snapping and disappearing into the abyss. The challenges were immense. They had to invent new types of insulation like gutta percha, a natural latex, to protect the copper core from the corrosive saltwater. They had to design massive ships capable of carrying and carefully laying thousands of miles of cable. The project was led by the determined American financier Cyrus Westfield. After several heartbreaking failures, success was finally achieved in 1866. A permanent working telegraph cable successfully connected North America and Europe. When Queen Victoria sent a message of congratulations to the American president, it marked a monumental moment in human history. A conversation that once took weeks by ship could now happen in minutes. The world suddenly felt much smaller. A business deal could be struck between London and New York in an afternoon. Families separated by the ocean could share news of a birth or a death almost instantly. The global village was beginning to take shape. The telegraph network created its own unique social world. Just like today's social media, it had its own etiquette and its own language. Because every word in a telegram cost money, people learned to be extremely concise. They developed a form of telegrammese, using abbreviations and dropping unnecessary words to save cash. This was the 19th century version of text speak. Phrases like arriving Tuesday or funds received became commonplace. The telegraph also played a role in romance and personal relationships. People used the wire, as it was called, to send flirtatious messages, arrange secret meetings, and even propose marriage. The speed of the telegraph added a sense of urgency and excitement to these exchanges. It was a new, modern way to court someone. Of course, like any powerful technology, the telegraph had its downsides. It was used to coordinate military campaigns with deadly efficiency. It could spread misinformation and financial panic just as quickly as it could spread truth. And it created a new kind of digital divide between those who had access to the network and those who lived in more isolated areas. The network also created new vulnerabilities. Spies could tap the lines to intercept secret government messages, and criminals could use the telegraph to coordinate their activities. The security of the network became a major concern, leading to the development of complex codes and ciphers to protect sensitive information, an early form of digital encryption. As the 19th century drew to a close, the telegraph was the undisputed king of long-distance communication. It had woven a web of copper wires that encircled the globe, carrying the daily traffic of empire, commerce, and personal life. It was a system that had fundamentally altered humanity's relationship with time and space. It created a world that was more connected, faster-paced, and more information-rich than ever before. The telegraph laid the groundwork for everything that was to come: the telephone, the radio, television, and eventually the internet we use today. It was the original information superhighway, a Victorian marvel of engineering and ingenuity. It proved that distance was no longer a barrier to human connection. So the next time you send a text or an email that crosses the globe in a fraction of a second, take a moment to remember its ancestor. Remember the clicking sounders, the skilled operators, and the vast web of copper wires that first taught the world how to talk at the speed of light. The telegraph wasn't just a machine. It was a revolution that wired the world and set the stage for our modern, connected lives. Thanks for watching. If you enjoyed this journey back in time, please like, subscribe, and check out more stories from our channel, Historical Repo.